Good evening, folks, and welcome back to another episode of the ARCA Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Evans, a.k.a. Startin' Park Car on Twitter, and it is great to be back with y'all on another Tuesday night. Usually we're doing this show on a Thursday, but I always want to do this show on Tuesdays, but we never get the entry lists out in time for me to do it. So it's great to be here with you guys for the ARCA show on a Tuesday for once. One of the rare times we'll probably get to do that for the rest of the year. Got a fun show for you guys today. One of the best ARCA races of 2023. Cannot deny the fact. One of the best ARCA races of 2023. We saw this past weekend at Michigan. Amazing race overall. Yeah, Jesse Love won again, but he really had to earn it this time. And we'll also be previewing the East Series Combo event, our next East Series Combo race, which will be at IRP as that championship battle for the East Championship really heats up. I really think we're in for a fun race this weekend. Obviously, we'll get to that when we get to that portion of the show. I'm going to go through my little intro. I go through at the beginning of every podcast. It's not that long, and then we'll jump right into the ARCA action. So you guys know the drill. Follow me on social media. Startin' Park on Twitter for all ARCA tweets, lower budget team tweets, and the fun occasional crap I tweet sometimes. I guess post, because now Twitter's X for some reason. Like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on that bell for all notifications so you guys never miss a podcast when we go live. And, of course, check out theracingexperts.com for all NASCAR media-related content, the official media partner of this podcast. Whew, it's a long intro. Michigan. Speed, love it. One of my all-time favorite tracks on the circuit. I love my favorite thing about race cars. Yes, I'm a big fan of short tracks, but I love tracks that absolutely show off speed. And, yeah, we got Daytona, we got Talladega, but those are just like no letting off the throttle. I like Michigan in a way because you have to let off the throttle, but you also can see the raw speed of a race car. And that's why I'm really sad that California Speedway, or Auto Club, I guess as it's called, is going away. And us race fans should really be thankful that in this day and age with how, profitable land is, that we still have these big, fast racetracks because we're losing them very quickly. Texas World Speedway, that's long gone now. Auto Club Speedway, that's going away. There's not many big, outside of Daytona and Talladega, big racetracks that are left. So we really, as fans, should be happy that we have a track like Michigan still on the schedule. The ARCA Series at Michigan, I've always kind of questioned why the ARCA Series does run at Michigan. But you know what? Fortunately, I've been shut up the last couple years. I really have been. I'll admit it. I've been shut up. The last couple of ARCA races at Michigan have been absolute bangers. Even going back to the mid-2000s and late 2000s, early 2010s, the ARCA Series always seemed to put on good races at Michigan. I'm not really sure why. I'm not complaining about it, but they always seem to put on great racing. Obviously, the Gen 4 cars were made to run at a track like Michigan. So up until we started seeing the Gen 6 bodies, the composite bodies in the mid-2010s, even those Gen 4 ARCA races up until like 2013, 14, 15, when we started seeing the Gen 6 bodies come in, those races were always good. The composite body, the first couple were kind of boring because you could tell which teams had the advantage with the composite bodies, the downforce, the setups. You could really tell who was doing better at that than other organizations. So it took a couple years for those kinds of races to get a lot better. But I would easily say within the last couple years, we really have had some great races. The last 2 years especially. Last year's race was a banger, and this race was a banger. I would put Michigan as the second best race of the season. Nothing is going to beat Daytona. I'll say it right now. Nothing is going to beat Daytona. That was the best ARCA race. It will be the best ARCA race of the whole season. But I'm going to put Michigan easily in second place. And I called it on last Thursday's show. People want to mock our series. We're only going to get 20 cars. Well, we put on a great race with just 20 cars. Imagine if we could get 30 out there. Imagine last Friday's race if we had 30 to 35 cars. That race would have completely outshined. The Cup race. What about Phoenix in the chat? Phoenix was a good race. I'm not going to deny Phoenix was a good race, but I enjoyed Michigan way more than Phoenix. So we'll slot Phoenix in Joe in the chat, we'll slot Phoenix in third of the best ARCA race of the year. Best ARCA West race of the year. We'll go with that. And the happiest portion to start off with is that we had the biggest entry list we had since 2018, which is really saying something. Last year's only had like 21. Remember, 2020 only had 17, and even then it was still a decent race. So we had 23 cars. Some of the notable entries, we had Brad Smith. He was bringing the 2 cars again. Still hasn't gotten the nose fixed on the 40, the Chevrolet, still damaged. I know ARCA is not very happy about him bringing a damaged race car, even though they know it's not going to be competitive, and even though they know it's going to start in park. ARCA still isn't very happy about him bringing a damaged car to Tech. They're not very happy about that. They don't really like that, and I understand it. I understand it from their perspective. I do. And if you guys could see the right front of that car, it's just bare. I'm pretty sure the duct tape is the only thing that is keeping that front fender from falling off. Yeah, and Brad's going to get it repaired. Yes, I would expect him to repair it in the off season. I would expect Brad to bring the Chevrolet to the dirt tracks and probably the road courses, just to not get any more stress on the Ford, because he wants to use the Ford more. That's his primary car. The Chevrolet is now kind of considered the backup. So Brad's probably going to replace the nose in the off season when he has the chance to, because obviously, even though ARC is only 20 weeks, Brad's still very busy with obviously his personal life and trying to maintain his equipment. But yes, talking more about the entry list, Connor Mosack was back in the 18. We have a lot to talk about him in this race. The wrecking ball, Chris Wright, who somehow did not wreck. Throw a party. We need to throw a party. Chris Wright went one race without crashing. I mean, this is history, folks. This is absolute history in the making. We need to throw a party. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to prep one. But yes, Chris Wright did not crash. It's a miracle. I know we're all shocked. I love Chris Wright as a person, but we trash on him all the time. We trash on him all the time for no good reason. So Chris Wright, if you ever watched this show, I'm sorry, man. It's just we love to mess with you. Cody Coughlin was back in his 72 car for the second week in a row. Gage Rogers was back for the first time since Kansas. Jason Kitzmiller was back in the 9017 team. Caleb Costner for his own Costner Weaver organization was back in the 93. Morgan Baird, he's a Michigan native. He usually tries to run the Michigan race for Andy Hillenberg. He was back in the 16. Jeffrey McZink, another local Michigan native. He was back in the 65. And Tim Goulet was running for his own 31 team, as Rita is nowhere. I don't believe she's not even close to being approved to run the big tracks yet. Practice, ARCA still does set practice and qualifying sessions. 22 of the 23 cars were able to get a lap out there for practice. Tim Goulet, surprisingly, I was really surprised. Tim Goulet did not make a practice lap or a qualifying lap, but yet he ran the whole race. And I know Tim Goulet has prior racing experience. It's not like he's a complete rookie. But I was very shocked because usually if my standing is correct in the ARCA rulebook, if you have not started a big track and you don't run a practice lap or a qualifying lap, you're forced to start in park. That happened to Alex Clubb back in Kansas of 2020. If you guys remember Alex Clubb's very first, where he really tried to give a good shot at ARCA, he bought, an ex-Andy Hillenberg car. He ran it as the 01, which was his own car, but it was using Andy Hillenberg's number. This was Kansas 2020, so I know not a lot of you guys might remember it, but the car was not done at all yet. So they brought it to the track, got it done, somehow got it done, got the decals on, but he missed practice, missed qualifying, and was forced to literally run one lap. So in this situation, I was kind of surprised. Again, not taking anything away from Tim Goulet, I was shocked to see them allowing him to run the whole race, because usually I figured if he doesn't run a practice lap or does not run a qualifying lap, then he couldn't run the whole distance. But maybe he did get out there and it was just never registered, or maybe they had legit mechanical problems that prevented that. I don't know. But usually, I figured that's usually the case with rookie drivers. The other 22 cars did take a time. Connor Mosack, surprisingly, kind of the surprise outside of Sawalich, one of the few times you actually see the 18 as the fastest car in practice outside of Sawalich. Connor Mosack quickest. Jesse Love was second. Lara, again, Andres Perez de Lara really shown more speed the last couple of races. He was third. Chris Wright was fourth. Gustine was fifth. Jake Finch down in sixth. Cody Coughlin seventh. Frankie Muniz eighth. Andy Jankowiak ninth. And Gage Rogers, Andy Hillenberg car. Shout out to him. He actually out-practiced a factory Ford of Christian Rose. The slowest was Jeff Smith in the 49. He ran 2 laps, and his fastest speed was 101.544. If you need every bit to know that this 49 was not trying in this race, just look at his practice and qualifying laps. Unfortunately, and this is what I do hate, is the race fans will look, the people who love to crap on ARCA will look at practice results like that and use that to crap on the series, when all you have to do is the slightest bit of research to realize that this is simply a starting park. Jeff is just trying to get a practice lap in, and he's not going to push it. Why would Jeff push it anyway? Even if the car wasn't damaged, why would Jeff push the car in any way? He just needs to get a lap in. So the problem is that people use that fodder to crap on the series. So that's the unfortunate part, and that's exactly what we saw. We saw people mocking the series because, oh, look, you're allowing a car that's, 31 seconds off the pace at Michiagn to run and race. It's like, come on, guys. Do some basic research. Realize that the 49 is only a starting park, and he was just trying to get a lap in. So, yeah. But again, people will do anything to try to crap on our beloved series. Qualifying came up next, and I will say in a shocker. I don't think really anyone expected this because of the Toyota dominance, but Chevrolet gets a pole. I'm not sure. Is that the very first pole for Chevrolet this season? Can anyone correct me on that, or if that is true? But Chevrolet gets a pole. Andres Perez de Lara wins the pole in a very shocker. I would say. I did not expect him to win the pole. I expected him to be top 5, but not the pole sitter. Gustine was second. Connor Mosack was third. Again, the Toyota Brigade. The Venturini and JGR, they were second through sixth. And then you had Frankie Muniz. Great speed out of them despite being pretty much unsponsored in the 30. Andy J, he's really trying in that 73 program, Klaus Motorsports. I don't know exactly how you pronounce it. Cody Coughlin and Christian Rose, again, 2 cars that did not take a qualifying lap. Again, the 31 of Tim Goulet and the 49 of Jeff Smith. And like I said in practice, Brad never really tries in his qualifying runs because he knows he's going to be at the back anyway. He starts at the rear anyway, so he doesn't try. And unfortunately, but what that does, again, it fuels the fire of the ARCA haters, because then they post that online saying, wow, look, you're letting a guy who is 21 seconds off the pace in qualifying start the race. And it's like, no, dude, all you have to do is some basic research and realize that this guy's not trying in qualifying because he doesn't have to. He knows he's going to be at the rear. There's no sense in putting extra stress on a car that is only like in its 5th race. I think this is like the 5th or 6th race for the Ford. Why would Brad want to put more stress on it? So, again, just basic research, and you don't need to crap on the series. So, was a little worried about darkness. Once again, just kind of like Pocono, this race was starting a little bit later in the day. So I was a little tad worried about darkness, but then as we know, these ARCA races at Michiagn, they don't last a super, super long time, at most 2 hours. So at the time that we were starting it, it was going to get, the sun was going to be going down, but there was still going to be plenty of light to finish the race. So no need to worry about darkness this time around. So we get to the start of the race, and it's kind of funny. Right at the start of the race, you saw the 49 of Jeff Smith. 49 of Jeff Smith just immediately come down pit road. Like, he didn't even bother take the start. And for anyone who is asking, yes, that does count as long as you make the pace laps like Dale Scheer did. Like Dale Scheer did at Pensacola earlier this year in the East race. Sorry if you hear my brother's dog. She's upstairs. Like Dale Scheer did at the Pensacola East race. As long as you take the pace laps, that is a technicality of starting the race. Yeah, it's not the best technicality, but it is a technicality of starting the race. We've seen Peterson cars do that before. We've seen Peterson cars do that before in the past, especially at Michigan. When they don't want to run a lap, you just follow the pace car down, because technically you cross the finish line on pit road, which means also, again, by technicality, you've started the race. So for the 49 of Jeff Smith, easiest couple laps of his life. I have no idea what's going on upstairs, so I apologize. I apologize if you can hear all that commotion. Yes, I know, the pace lap start and park. We don't see that very much in racing nowadays. Sorry, guys. I got a hair that's hanging right in front of my face. The consequences of having long hair. Meanwhile, the race itself actually started, and you could see the inexperience of Andres Perez de Lara starting on the front row. He got a decent start, but he quickly got eaten up by the Toyota Brigade. Still held his own. By the end of the first lap, I think he wasn't out of the top 5. He just fell back to like second or third. And Gus Dean, he quickly grabbed the lead, and I figured he would. Gus Dean was actually my pick to win this race. I figured with his experience at Michigan in both the ARCA series and the Truck series that Gus would probably be the guy to beat in this race. And he showed that while he did have the best car, again, it's clear that Venturini is just not putting the effort into the 25, 55, and 15 that they are in the 20. And rightfully so. The 20 is the showroom car. It is the owner's championship car, is the driver's championship car. So they're going to put the most effort into that one. So, and I think that was noticeable throughout the race, just how much stronger of a car, not taking anything away from Jesse Love's talent abilities, but it really shows in a lot of these big track races just how much stronger the 20 Venturini entry is than the other 3. It really, really shows. Whereas at the short tracks, sometimes you can notice the other Venturini cars staying up with the 20 and sometimes even passing him. But most of the time, it's the 20 car that gets the elite stuff out of Venturini, and again, rightfully so. And look at that. We got ARCA East driver Zachary Tink on the chat. Good to see you, Zachary. So Gus gets the lead, but, in a rare thing that, we don't really see much, we actually saw a pass for the lead. What you saw for the pass for the lead, Gus Dean held it for the first 8 laps. Andres Perez de Lara made a great run down, actually technically led 1 lap. Gus got back by him, side-by-side racing. Again, it's just so hard to believe in a field, of only 23 cars, technically 22 started. Realistically, only about 8 cars hanging in the lead draft. The racing was so good between these guys. They were drafting up to each other. They were running side-by-side, lap after lap. I mean, really, really good racing. Really, really good racing. Gustin was able to keep the lead. Jesse Love, again, who had started a little bit lower in the Toyota Brigade. Dean had gotten out to a decent-sized lead. Jesse Love took him some time to pass the 18, to pass the 2. Pass the 18, to pass the 2. And, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. And he had to take some time to run down the 25. Eventually, on lap 17, Jesse Love would take the lead, but just for 1 lap. Again, this is one thing I love. You didn't just go up there and take the lead at Michigan. You could really challenge someone. Jesse Love would lead 1 lap. Gustin would get back by for 2 laps. But like I said before, the elite equipment that 20 is getting, you could really tell just how much better the car itself actually was compared to the 25. And eventually the 20 did get by. So you had Jesse Love leading, Gustin in second, Andres Perez de Lara, and Connor Mosack battling for third. You had Chris Wright. I mean, I will give a shout out to Chris Wright. He hung up there. He actually was quite competitive. He was battling for fourth. And then you had Andy J up there running in, of course, the top 5, running amongst the top 5, which was awesome to see. Again, really cool to see. Again, it's a Toyota team, but it's a non-Venturini Gibbs Toyota actually showing signs of competitiveness, which we really don't see a lot anymore. And again, it's just kind of how it is. But seeing Andy Jankowiak improve his organization to the point where they nearly won this race, so heartwarming. And we can only hope it's getting to get better and better and better. So they're continuing on, and then throughout the field, we got more hard battles. Again, Jesse Love is kind of holding the lead strong. And then we have our first incident of the race on lap 26, the 15 of Jake Finch. Well, I will by the say, Jake Finch definitely, I don't know what's happened to him. I don't know if Venturini is maybe giving him the short end of the stick, but in all the starts that he's had this year for Venturini, he really hasn't shown much. I'll be honest with you. I have not seen the talent out of Jake Finch that I thought we would see at the beginning of this year. Obviously, his own ARCA program has kind of fizzled out. The Phoenix Racing ARCA program we haven't seen in a while, I believe since Nashville, where they really weren't that competitive to the standard that we thought, which is a shame because we all thought he was going to be in battle for this E-Series championship. And even in his big track starts for Venturini this year, like I said, he wasn't very good at Pocono even before he hit the wall. And here, I just thought he really didn't do much, so to say, did not do much. But he was battling with Frankie Muniz. And then all of a sudden, off of turn 4, it's like the 30 was expecting the 15 to go up. The 15 did not go up. And they made really, really hard contact. Somehow both of the cars saved it. Frankie did end up blowing a right front, but managed to avoid a really horrible impact. And only minor damage, like very, very minor damage to the right front for the 30 team. So that sucked for Frankie because, the last thing that 30 organization needs is they don't have the sponsorship dollars. And the last thing they need is to be repairing cars. And that's the one thing that I'm glad Frankie has not done this year. Frankie really hasn't crashed outside of Elko, which I don't really believe was his fault either. So we had our first incident of the evening. We had the 69 car of Scott Melton was the free pass. And I want to go back also. Alex Clubb, they had a tire go down. He only completed 4 laps. It was not a start and park. I want to address that real quick. It was not a start and park. In the first couple laps, Alex had a tire go down, which sucks because it was probably he said it was the best set of tires that he had pretty much run on this year. He said he got on track, tire flat, changed the tire, went back out, motor started laying down. So that's why Alex Clubb fell out after just 4 laps. We had the fast track start and park of Tim Monroe. He only ran 8 laps before he went out of the race. AJ Moyer, and we will talk about AJ Moyer and Brad Smith. They were kind of the 2 slower stragglers. Even Tim Goulet, I'll give shout out to Tim Goulet. He really improved his lap times towards the end of the race. He was running only about 4 seconds a lap off the leaders, which is versus about running about 8 seconds off the leaders at the start of the race. But AJ Moyer had a mechanical problem. They brought the same Ford that had issues at Charlotte, so I was a little skeptical on why they would bring that specific car. Just because that black Ford has shown that it's not the best car out of the Peterson stable. I kind of figured that they would have brought the yellow Chevrolet. Because that car, I know the Chevrolet is one of the more reliable cars in the Venturini, is in the Peterson stable. But that car only ran 19 laps. So the one thing I also don't understand is we had the scheduled caution on lap 35, but we had the caution for the 30 on lap 25. I'm not really sure why we ran all these extra caution laps just to run 4 laps and then go to a comp yellow. It's one thing I wish ARCA would change. I understand the idea of no live pit stops, but I also understand in a series like this, the live pit stops, it hurts. It hurts the pit strategy of a race like this. But that's just kind of the series we live in nowadays, and we just kind of got to accept it. So we had a quick 4-lap run. From lap 32 to lap 35 to scheduled caution. No change up front. Jesse Love, it kind of figured that everybody was taking it easy. They knew it was only going to be 4 laps. Quite a few cars did come down pit road, though, just to make some adjustments and get some tires because they knew that if they pit here with the 22-gallon fuel tanks, that they could go to the second scheduled stage caution. But a lot of the leaders did not pit. So Jesse Love, he would stay out, got back going green again on lap 41. And then we had our first big lead change of the race. Andres Perez de Lara on lap 42 takes the lead. And he doesn't just zip by the 20. He takes that lead in a power move, something that we have not really seen out of Rev Racing this entire year. So it's awesome to see Rev Racing actually showing speed because, compared to what we saw last year with Nick Sanchez, Rev Racing did not show the speed that we are accustomed to seeing them show. Pretty much this whole year, Andres Perez de Lara, it's not like he's been slow. He's just, it's not the same Rev Racing that was going for the championship last year. It's clear that they're putting in a lot of effort. They want that truck team to work out, and it is. Nick Sanchez has been in line to win some truck races. I don't remember if he has won a truck race yet. I don't think he has, but they're knocking on the door. That KBM support, Rev Racing's truck team is doing very, very well for itself. Unfortunately, their ARCA program has suffered a bit, in my personal opinion, because of that truck team. The East team, the 6 car, has really suffered because of it. It is not as quick as it was last year either. But still great seeing them show some speed. One thing I did really, like I said, want to talk about was the 06 of AJ Moyer and the 48 of Brad Smith. And I posted this tweet online, which did get kind of some controversial people and, again, some more ARCA haters coming at me. We know that Brad and Wayne's cars do not run Ilmores, and they run Brad runs an SC1 motor in his car. I'm not sure what Wayne runs, maybe a D3. I know they got Chevrolet motors in their Toyotas, which is kind of funny to say. The white Toyota that AJ runs, there's a Chevy motor in that. I'm not sure if they have a Chevy motor in this car, but whatever motor they got, they're just not that quick. They're not that quick in general. And then, of course, we know with the ARCA, the legacy motors, which is kind of what they're classified as. So you got to tune them down an extra, I think what Zachary Tinkle said, an extra 100 horsepower, something like that. And you can really tell, man, it kills them at big tracks. I mean, at Daytona, Talladega, and Michigan, they're barely pulling any speed. Daytona, their cars can barely pull about 168 by themselves. At Talladega, they can pull about 165 to 170 by themselves. At Michigan, you can really tell that they're struggling. So Brad was running 156, 157 by himself. AJ was running about 155, 156 himself too. And it's all they can give out. It's really all they can give out. I mean, it also doesn't help that they're on old tires. The cars aren't really 100% set up for a track like Michigan. And it's kind of what I said back at Charlotte. When you have all those factors mixed together, I'm not saying you have a recipe for disaster, because it wasn't a disaster, but you have a recipe for a car that's just not going to be good. And it's nothing against Brad Smith. I mean, he's my part-time boss. And it's nothing against Uncle Wayne, nothing against AJ Moyer either. It's just the nature of those cars. And I kind of just put out a tweet saying, what if we could just at least give them back that 100 horsepower? I know it wouldn't help everything, but maybe it wouldn't cause them to be so dang slow. And, I had some people saying oh, that wouldn't solve all the problems. There's a lot more problems to that. And I'm like, I get it. There's a lot more problems to that than just the horsepower. But you cannot tell me that if Brad and Wayne in their cars had that extra 100 horsepower for tracks like Daytona, like Talladega, and like Michigan, they wouldn't be, 7 to 8 seconds a lap off the pace. Maybe they'd only be 4 to 5, which still isn't very good, but it would be a lot better than what they'd be doing the first time. So I don't know. That tweet did get a lot of attention. Again, still did get some hate, but I feel like that's one thing we can change. Penalizing these organizations for not being able to afford Ilmore's ridiculous prices and Yates motors, which just aren't really designed to run these big tracks at Michigan. I mean, they are. I know what you're saying, Yates and Michigan. Some of these Yates motors are more designed for short tracks. Some of the teams prefer to use the Yates motors on the short tracks and not the bigger tracks. They prefer to use the Ilmores on the bigger tracks. But I hate that ARCA does penalize organizations like Fast Track, like Fast Track, like Brad Smith, and like Wayne Peterson, just because they simply can't afford an Ilmore. I mean, they could afford an Ilmore when they first came into the sport, and now they can't because Ilmore is just, God, I can't tell you the real price of an Ilmore, guys, but all I'm just saying to you, it's ridiculous. It really is. I'm sure that ARCA officials would get mad if I told you the real price. I can't tell you the real price. I'm sorry. But yes, the real price of an Ilmore, guys, you guys would be mad. And reason why I keep saying Truck Series spec motors is bad for the series is because of how much they are charging these truck teams. It is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I hate spec motors. I've said if you want to kill a series, go to spec motors. I don't like it. Yeah, I know. I agree with you, Zachary. I think some teams expected it would be more effective than others, but no, I don't know. I don't like it. I just don't like spec motors. I don't. And we've also seen that the Ilmores in general are not the best reliable engines. There's been a lot of engine failures in the truck series and a lot of mechanical problems with Ilmore that they won't tell you about. So, but getting back to the race, I just wanted to talk about some of those lap car issues that, again, we were talking about. Even the Andy Hillenberg cars at a track like this, they weren't too far off. Second and a half, 2 seconds a lap. Not race winning speed, but they're not way off the pace. They can hang with their own cars, like hang with their own team, if that makes sense. So this was one of the longer also runs of the race. We had 17 laps. Andres Preslar, he had the car to beat in this run. You could really tell, man. The 2 was going to be a car to beat in the 20. And also shout out to Jesse Love. Apparently he was under the weather. He was really under the weather during this race. So shout out to Jesse Love for powering on through. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, Jesse Love could not catch the 2. He was right there with him. I mean, it's not like he was 2 or 3 seconds back, but he could not catch the 2 and pass him. And I like that. Really shows you that for these big races, these big track races, that the 2 and Rev Racing really put the effort in. The unfortunate part is we've seen Rev Racing struggle at the short tracks, which is weird because you think they would run the best at short tracks with how much they put focus into short tracks. But I feel that short tracks is actually the weaker part of their program. So yeah, we run 17 laps during this run. Not much changes for the top 2 positions. We kind of had the 2 in the lead, the 18 and the 20 were kind of swapping back second and third. We had the 55 and 25 and 15 kind of battling each other. The 73 of Andy Jankowiak, his car just kept getting better throughout the race. He entered into the top 5 battle, battling the Venturini cars, which was so entertaining to see. A guy like Andy J, a man who literally delivers pizzas for a living, taking it to the big boys at Venturini and Joe Gibbs. Then you kind of had the mid-pack battles. Frankie Muniz got himself back on the lead lap. He was battling Christian Rose, Cody Coughlin, and John Garrett, all there for top 10 positions. Same with Jason Kitzmiller. Unfortunately for other mid-pack cars, Caleb Costner, he would hit the wall, which kind of killed their day. Not sure if it was in this run. I'm not exactly sure when the 93 hit the wall because it didn't bring out a yellow. And they briefly mentioned it on TV, so I don't exactly know when they hit the wall. But it kind of killed their day. They had to spend some time on green flag. And we had our next caution would come out on lap 58 for who else but Scott Melton. Unfortunately, like Iowa, he did not hit anything, which I'm glad. I don't want to see Kimmel Racing have to repair more cars. But I like Scotty. I like Scotty Melton. No damage to the car, just spun around. Although he got kind of spun around because of the leaders. The leaders came up on him very quickly, and it was just kind of reaction time, and it took the air off the spoiler. So not 100% Melton's fault, but just kind of one of them racing deals where, they catch a lap car that's, not 8 seconds off the pace, trying to run hard, and just got him at a bad time. But it was during this point where we had a pivotal moment in the race. With these 22-gallon fuel tanks in ARCA, it allows these cars to go a lot more than the top 3 NASCAR divisions, which is another thing I still love about the series. We still got so much difference. We got 22-gallon fuel tanks in ARCA. I don't know how many fuel tank NASCAR runs, but it used to be 22 gallons. I don't think they run that anymore, though. But during this caution, we had everybody but the 2 car come to pit road. Unfortunately, Perez de Lara missed the pit road entry, and everybody else behind him pitted, which would put de Lara at a huge disadvantage, unfortunately, once we would get to the scheduled second break, because he would have to pit for fuel and tires, while everybody else behind him already had the fuel and tires to get to the end of the race. So We ran, and unfortunately, since the 69 car was supposed to be the free pass, there was no free pass under this caution. So we kind of had a mixed bag restart on lap 63. Mixed bag restart with 37 laps to go. Surprisingly, they did not take. Sorry, I had some ads playing. Sorry about that. They had a mixed bag restart. They didn't. You could kind of tell that the field was not pushing very hard to catch the two, and I think that was a pretty strategic move by the Venturini cars. They knew the two was going to have to pit, so why race him so hard? It was only 8 laps. Don't push your tires hard. Don't push it hard. You know he's going to have to pit, so just ride it out, and that's what they did. That's what the Venturini cars did. We ran the 8 laps. Scheduled caution came out on lap 71. And, of course, Perez de Lara, unfortunately, had to surrender the lead and would come to pit road. The race resumed on lap 72, but we had a very unique front row. We had Cody Coughlin and Jesse Love. Not sure if this was the exact restart where this happened, but we had Cody Coughlin and Jesse Love restarting on the front row, and we had Morgan Baird in a fast track car. He was on the second row inside, which was pretty and cool. So it was kind of cool seeing Coughlin and Baird up there, even if it was for just a brief moment. But we came back after the restart on lap 75. And this is where the race, we didn't just jump in from second to fourth gear. We went to like 20th gear. I don't even know how to explain it. This race just took off. They took the green on lap 25. The 18 and the 20, they fly into turn 1 together, and we are side by side for the lead, man. I mean, great racing. Second and third are side by side. Chris Wright and Andy Jankowiak and Gus Dean, we're all side by side. These guys are going at it. You know, it might be the final restart. And, 3 wide into turn 3. They went 3 wide, man. And what an impressive move by Gus Dean. And that is where, we mentioned on last week's show, the veteran nature of Gus Dean might pay off. He took the lead as the 18 and the 20 were battling each other. Rookie mistakes by the 18 and the 20, and the 25 would take the advantage. Great racing. Moves like that you don't expect to see, but when you see them, you have the jaw drop. And then comes the funnier moment of the race. The 18 of Connor Mosack racing the 18. They go into turn 1. The 2 is pushing the 20. The 20 is then pushing the 18. The 18 is trying to run down the 25. And what happens when they go into turn 1? The 18 of Mosack just throws it. He absolutely throws the 18 in there. It is not going to stick. I knew the second he hit the corner, there is no way that 18 car is going to stick. And it did not. And unfortunately, Gus Dean got taken out. Unfortunately, Gus Dean, it's not like he got crashed, but the 18, it didn't stick. They made contact. Dean goes up into the wall. Mosack with the save of the year. And for a brief moment, we were 4 wide, and Andy Jankowiak was actually leading the race. For a brief moment. It was the highlight of the race, Reese's moment of the race. Awesome, great stuff. Great stuff. For a brief moment, Andy Jankowiak was leading this race. I'm like, if only he could have kept it. So Andy Jankowiak thought he had the lead. The 2 of Perez basically goes from 5th to 1st in all of 1 lap. And you think, there's no way Jesse Love's got this. But it was clear that the adjustments that they had made to the 18 were making the car faster. He had gotten back past the 73 of Jankowiak and was running the 2 down. Unfortunately, they would make contact again, not severe contact. You could say he didn't hit him, kind of got him loose. Just kind of shows, I don't know, most like a dirty driver. It's kind of a wrecking ball. I feel like he can be kind of a wrecking ball sometimes. Sometimes he can be a little too aggressive. You look at Mosack's races right this year in the 24 car for Sam Hunt. He either runs like crap or crashes. So I don't know if Connor Mosack, maybe he just got too rushed into NASCAR. Maybe he needed more seat time in ARC. I mean, this guy's basically running like 20 Xfinity races, and I don't know if he was ready. I mean, I was kind of shocked at the amount of races that, Connor Mosack was running for Sam Hunt, despite his lack of experience. And the way he's running an ARCA, in my opinion, shows he's not ready for Xfinity. So I don't know how to call it there. And with all this other chaos, unfortunately, the good luck runs out for the two team of Andres Perez de Lara. Right as they get taken for the lead, the two starts to slow down more and more and more, and it is soon discovered that they had lost a cylinder and eventually an engine failure overall, which would bring out, unfortunately, the caution. So that kind of killed all the fun racing. It bunched the field all back up. Jesse Love had made his way up to second. Andy Jankowiak was still third. So it looked as this point, if we did not have a caution, that the 18 team was going to get their first win in quite a while. So, yeah, Billy in the chat, I kind of agree. Maybe Mosack just is not cut out for ovals. I think his Xfinity results really, I feel like they do show it. Mosack maybe just is not an oval driver. And that happens sometimes. Even then, his performances on the road courses were not the best. I mean, yeah, I think he had a top 10 at Portland, but still nothing special in my personal opinion. But yeah, maybe Mosack's just not a oval driver. That could be the case too. But we did have a caution. Like I said, for the two-car spitting fluid. Unfortunately, with these ARCA officials, it takes them forever to clean up stuff. It's one of the few biggest problems I have. We ran 7 laps under caution, okay? We ran 7 laps under caution. We really could not red flag the race. Like, what are we doing here? If we had that much fluid to clean up, why couldn't we just red flag the race? We had to waste 7 laps under caution. That's one of the few problems I did have of this race. Why are we wasting so many laps of caution when there's not many laps left in the race overall? So that's a big problem I had, because we literally went back to green with 1 lap to go. It was a stupid 1-lap shootout. I really wish ARCA would change this rule. Don't make it a 1-lap shootout. Just do 2 laps. It's so much easier. The 1-lap idea just brings too much chaos. And the unfortunate chaos is what it brought, no matter how entertaining it was. So we could go back going green again. And this was probably one of the weirdest restarts I have ever seen. So they're coming to the restart, okay? Coming to the restart, and everybody's all jumbled up. The 18 does not go at all. You could give an argument that the 20 jumped the start. So the 18 falls back through the field, and then the back markers, some of the back markers crash. The 15 of Jake Finch, who I think at this point he had just been having a rough day. I'm not sure if he spun or something, but he was running at the way back of the field. He literally just runs right into the back of Jeffrey McZink for no reason. Just runs right into the back of him on the restart, turns himself around, and the 31 of Tim Goulet nearly gets annihilated. And I feel bad for, I don't feel bad for Jake Finch, but I feel bad for Jeffrey McZink. I mean, a guy who had been running the entire race clean, and gets taken out on the last lap by it wasn't, I don't blame the Venturini team, but what was Jake Finch doing there? This car is not fast in front of you, but instead of just waiting until you get to the line and passing him, you just, bam, take him out. I don't like that. I didn't like that. So obviously with the 15 and the 65 stalled in the front stretch, they had to throw a caution. Obviously Andy Jankowiak, we were all praying that somehow he would get the restart of his life and hang on to win. But we got the caution. Jesse Love got out front. Gus Dean was second. Connor Mosack was third. Frankie Muniz was fourth. We tried the restart again. Like I said, and the next restart I feel like was even crazier. You could tell a lot of the cars in the back of the field were not pushing as hard because they kind of knew they were a lap down. They weren't going to fight for a lead lap position. And unfortunately, what we see many times with cars that are normally not expected to be up there is nobody will work with them, such as the case for poor Andy Jankowiak on that last restart. Nobody would work with him. And it sucks. Nobody would work with him. He got swallowed up by the 18 and the 25, which unfortunately left Jesse Love with no competition. And Jesse Love would come around the corner, and he would win yet again. He had to earn it this time, but Jesse Love wins at Michigan in his very first attempt. Connor Mosack finishes second. We had a great last lap battle with Frankie Muniz threw it into turn 3. It did not stick, but he still hung on for his first top 5 finish. Like I said, Jesse Love wins. Gus Dean was able to keep second. Connor Mosack was third. Andy Jankowiak still able to come home fourth. Frankie Muniz getting the top 5 finish, a big confidence booster for that organization, despite the earlier crash. Morgan Baird. Yeah, Morgan Baird for Andy Hillenberg got a 6th place finish. Christian Rose 7th. Cody Coughlin 8th. Gage Rogers and John Garrett. 3 fast-track racing cars in the top 10. You got to love it. Got to love 3 fast-track racing cars in the top 10 because Chris Wright was having mechanical problems on the last restart. So he did not complete the last lap. And Jake Finch, who was involved in that crash, was also having mechanical problems on that last restart. So for the second time this season, the 15 and the 55 finish outside the top 10 together. Jason Kitzmiller, who had actually been having a pretty decent run, was also running into some mechanical problems. He finished only 13th. Jeffrey Magzink, who was involved in that crash, they nursed it home to 14th. Caleb Costner, like I said, who hit the wall, finished 15th. And Tim Goulet, the lone straggler car, finished 16th. The rest of the field, Andres Perez de Lara was 17th after an engine failure. Scott Melton was 18th. He had brought out that caution. They had a wheel bearing go bad, so they had to retire the car. And then, of course, Brad Smith, A.J. Moyer, Tim Monroe, Alex Clubb, and Jeff Smith. Overall, just a great race. Absolutely great race from top to bottom. I would give it easily an 8.5 out of 10. I think the only quibbles I have are the cautions, the time it took to clean it up. Don't like that. We need to improve on that. Other than that, really, really great race. Great race overall. ARCA should be very proud of themselves. And the race itself got a lot of great, publicity on it too. We had a lot of people saying that was overall a very good race. So this was a win for ARCA this past weekend. This past weekend was a win for the ARCA series, and that's great. We don't get many of those. So we'll take it. And we'll talk about the point standings more when we talk about IRP. But yeah, just some final thoughts on Michigan. Can't wait to see it return next year. This is a track, if I ever do get into ARCA, this is a track I would love to run on just because of the raw speed of the track itself. And yeah, that's the goal. So Michigan was good, but Jesse Love wins again. So kind of had the people still complaining about it. But hey, the elite cars got to win. So whether we like it or not. Now we move on from Michigan into IRP or ORP, whatever it's called. Sometimes it's called the Riley Raceway Park. Sometimes it's called Indianapolis Raceway Park. It's a cute little short track in Brownsburg, Indiana, only about less than 20 minutes away from the Big Daddy Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where the Xfinity Series and Cup Series will be at the road course. Wish they were at the Oval. Technically, they are at the Oval. It's the same track. And you got the Truck Series and the ARCA Series at IRP. So that'll be a fun race weekend coming up this one. The Reese's 200, one of my favorite race names. Gotta love Reese's Candy sponsoring these races. We got a pretty decent entry list. 23 cars, only 1 car shorter than last year. And when you consider, like I said, the amount of teams that shut down compared to last year to the amount of teams we have this year, getting 23 cars is still an accomplishment. We'll go over the 23 cars right now, starting off with the Max Siegel entries. There's 2 of Andres Perez de Lara, the 6 of LeVar Scott. Tim Monroe will be in the 10 this week, and I do expect that car to run the whole race. Zachary Tinkle, of course, will be in the 11, full-time East driver. D.L. Wilson is back. D.L. Wilson is back for the first time since Phoenix and that horrible crash he had with Christian Rose. Christian Rose like I said, in the incident with DL Wilson. DL Wilson will also be running a throwback scheme, I believe, maybe to Russ Wheeler, Hardy's paint scheme, some sort of throwback scheme. I'm not sure if it's a Days of Thunder scheme or not, but DL Wilson will be running a specially designed 12 car. Sean Hingorani's back in the main series after, of course, his suspension. William Sawalich returns in the 18. Obviously, Jesse Love in the 20. Connor Jones in the 25. Luke Fenhaus, the Iowa winner, and the Nashville winner in the 28. Frankie Muniz, again, no sponsorship, just listed as Ford Performance. Rita Goulet back in the 31 because she's trying to run the East schedule. Christian Rose in the 32. Greg Van Alst, the Daytona winner, makes his first start since Charlotte, so great to see him back. 48 of Brad Smith. He has the Chevrolet listed. Wouldn't shock me if he actually does bring the Chevrolet, as this is kind of a beating and banging track, and Brad likes to bring the Chevy. It's a good short track car. Tony Breidinger in the 55 back again. No sponsorship listed. It's kind of, again, interesting how we've seen Tony run all these races this year in the 55 with no sponsorship. The 66 of John Garrett, which is sponsored by Eric Estep's DailyDownforce.com, which I think is kind of cool. Kind of the NASCAR Weekly Podcaster guys, their DailyDownforce.com website is sponsoring John Garrett. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Isaac Johnson is in the 93. He's making his debut for Costner Weaver Motorsports. Christopher Martin Jr. will run for the 95 organization that Tanner Allen usually runs for. Dale Shear will be in the 98. The other Pizza Man to Andy Jankowiak. Brayton Laster will be in the 01 for Fast Track Racing. Casey Carden returns to Alex Clubb in the 03. And, of course, A.J. Moyer in the 06. So, pretty decent field. Pretty decent field for this race. SVG may be practicing in Dale's ARCA, prearranged. You're telling me Shane Van Gisbergen is going to be practicing in Dale Shear's ARCA car? If that actually happens, we better get a freaking photo of that. I swear, I mean, I know some funny stuff is made up in this chat sometimes, but I hope to God that that is real. Shane Van Gisbergen, a guy who has raced some of the most elite sports cars on the planet. God, okay. Pom-poms in the chat. If you're going to be there, get a photo of that, please. Someone get a photo of that. We need that photo. That would be the ultimate ARCA photo of probably the last 10 years. And that's really saying something. SVG and the 98 of all cars. I love that. I love that. I mean, you guys, you heard it right here, folks, on the podcast. SVG is supposedly driving the 98 car. And yes, we all know Dale needs the money. So, please, can we get a photo of this? I swear to God, this would be the best thing ever. The best thing ever. Oh my God. And it's a great car for Shane to learn in. Oh man, I really hope that happens. I really hope that happens. Put SVG in the 98 for the race itself. Imagine SVG driving the 98 ARCA car. That would be gold. I would love that. Oh my God. That just made my night. That really just made my night. You heard it right here live on the show, folks. I love that. That just made my night. Oh, God. If that actually happens, someone better get a damn photo of that. And we need to just blow that up on Twitter or X, wherever it's called now. Oh, Jesus. Oh, I love that. Coming into this race, well, we know the Drivers' Championship is pretty much settled in the main division. We actually do have a Drivers' Championship to still look out for. Luke Fenhaus and William Sawalich. They are separated by just 11 points. And with these combination races expecting to exceed 20 cars each, these combo races expecting to hit over 20 cars. Bristol's expected to hit over 30. It's very easy to say that Luke Fenhaus easily still has a chance at this E-Series championship. And we know that Joe Gibbs Racing, or Kyle Busch, because they technically had to run as Kyle Busch last year, they're going for 4 straight East Series championships. 1 with Ty Gibbs, 2 with Sammy Smith, and then this year with William Sawalich, obviously. But man, I tell you, the Pinnacle Racing Group and Luke Fenhaus, they're really taking it to them. And a track like this also fits Luke Fenhaus's driving style, like it did at Iowa. So I would not rule out Luke Fenhaus for this East Series championship, and it's going to come down to probably that last race at Bristol. That'll be very, very fun to watch. The only track where I feel like that the 18 might have the advantage over the 28 is Milwaukee, because that's a track where Joe Gibbs really can nail the power down. They're the only 2 cars that can really contend in that championship. The other full-timers, LeVar Scott's 3rd, 28 points behind. Zachary Tinkle 4th, 44 points behind. Tim Monroe, yes, Tim Monroe. Looks like he'll be running the full East season, even though they hadn't planned that. He's 5th, Dale Shearer 6th. And, of course, Sean Hingorani, who missed the race at Iowa due to a suspension, has dropped down to 7th. Rita Goulet, who also did technically miss that race, she's down in 10th. Nate Moeller, 06 goers with AJ Moore. He is not entered in, but he might run the 0 at some other races. Can't guarantee that, but they might run the 0 at Milwaukee. The main series division, obviously, we know Jesse Love is going to be the champion for 2023. Frankie Muniz did move back into 2nd place after Andres Perez de Lara's engine issues. So at least for Frankie Muniz, they still got something to shoot for. You know, they still got something to shoot for. Try to shoot for 2nd place in the Drivers' Championship. The Owners' Championship, obviously the ARCA Owners' Championship, the coveted title in the ARCA Series. It's still heating up, man. But Billy Venturini's car is really starting to build a gap over the Joe Gibbs 18 car. So this is a weekend that the 18 needs to gain some ground. Right now, the 20 Venturini entry holds a 9-point gap over the Joe Gibbs 18 car. It is a 2-horse race for that Owners' Championship. And in the East Division, the Owners' Championship is still pretty wild over there as well. Right now, it is a 3-horse race for the Owners' Championship in the East Division, as the 18 Joe Gibbs entry is 11 points ahead, like we mentioned, of the Mark Webb 28 entry, but only 17 points ahead of the Billy Venturini 20 entry. That would be Jesse Love for these final couple races. So for both the main series and the East Series, the Owners' Championships are going to come down to the last race. And I love that. We love that. And, you know, like I said, I wish the Drivers' Championships would always be more interesting. But look at the East Series. We got an East Series championship battle that will likely come down to the last race with Luke Fenhaus and William Sawalich for both the Owners' Championship and the East Drivers' Championship. And like last year for the ARCA Owners' Championship, which got ugly at Toledo, it's probably going to get even uglier this year. Gotta love it, man. Billy Venturini's the best. He's the best when he's mad. But yeah, and the best part is, as far as we know, looking at this entry list, no starting parks. No starting parks reported. From what I know, I think the 0-1 of Laster is going to be running the whole distance. We know Tim Monroe. Usually Tim Monroe will run the full race. He didn't run the full race at Iowa, but he's run some full East races. We know Zachary Tinkle's full race. We know DL will be full race. And we know John Garrett will obviously be full race. So we might actually be seeing all 5 fast track racing entries go the distance. So that'd be kind of cool. That'd be kind of cool to see fast track racing. And it's great to see Andy Hillenberg's team, you know, doing so well at this point. I mean, you know, there was a time where Andy Hillenberg's ARCA team was not doing very well. The mid-2010s were quite a struggle for Andy Hillenberg's ARCA team. They really were. You got to go back and look at the results. The team was not very good. And I would say that this is arguably, ever since his championship days in the 90s, this is probably the most competitive we've ever seen fast track racing. And I love it. I love the fact that we're seeing fast track racing really taking it to these guys on the short tracks. I mean, Zachary Tinkle, if only Zachary Tinkle could just get an Ilmore, I think Zachary Tinkle could be very competitive. Very, very competitive. But yeah. So other than that, no starting parks I see. The only one I could see is maybe Brad. If Brad is running the Chevrolet, I don't expect him to run the whole race. I guess we'd say is Brad and the Chevrolet have been having some mechanical problems. We had the throttle sticking issue at Elko in the Chevrolet. And it just wasn't the right carburetor. It was the whole thing was kind of a mess. The Chevrolet motor itself is old. The brakes on the Chevrolet are not very good. They're getting old too. The Chevrolet is a mess. We'll put it like that in the kindest terms. If you got to know why, Brad's just trying to get everything he can out of that Chevrolet, because once he gets his other Ford done, like that car is ready. I'm not saying the Chevrolet is going to be done, but that car will be kind of labeled as the emergency car. If that makes sense. It'll kind of be labeled as just the emergency car, and we'll try to focus on running his two Fords. If that makes any sense. So Brad's just trying to get the most he can. If he is running the Chevrolet this weekend, I don't expect it to be a full race. He'll probably run 50, 60 laps, if that. So I think that, of course, will probably happen. I'm not sure if Rita will have to get out of the car this race. Rita did have to get out of the car at Iowa. Tim Goulet did finish the 31 at Iowa. Not sure if she'll have to do that. Not sure have to do that. In this race, this track's a little bit easier than Iowa. It's not as fast. And since the preferred line at IRP is the preferred line at IRP is the high line. So Rita and like Brad, they can run the low line. Contrary to popular belief, no, the second Ford for Brad is not Dale Jr.'s 2000 Richmond win car. It is not. But the one thing I will say it was the backup car. It was the backup car. It was a very, very old DEI chassis that Brad has. It was not the race-winning car, but it was the backup car that was in that hauler when Junior won that race. So pretty cool statistic that Brad Smith is driving an ex-Dale Jr. chassis. Pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. And again, it's stories like that just need to be covered in ARCA. You literally got a Dale Jr. chassis that's being driven by Brad Smith. It's pretty cool, isn't it? I had to look it up myself. It's an old DEI chassis. I don't know what's going to hit the track. It's got a lot of work that needs done to it. Still hasn't been painted. Suspension still not properly installed yet. So I wouldn't expect that car to hit the track. I don't even know if it'll hit the track next year. That car still got a lot of work to be done on it. Brad's still got to get a good motor in it. But yeah. Another one of the owners' battles we'll talk about before we get out of here is the top 20 battle in the main series, which is currently being held by Bill Kimmel and Andy Jankowiak in the 69 and 73. And then, of course, the top 15 E-Series owner point bonus, which is being held by the 25 of Kathleen Venerini and the 95 of Mark Noble, with the 69 lurking in. So at least for Brad and Wayne, they might get bonuses in both the East and main divisions. So again, if you really wonder where they do get their money from, it's from bonuses like that. So, whew. And we do have confirmation. Looks like Dale Scheer is going the distance. He did start in Park, Iowa. It looks like he will be going the whole distance at IRP. And that makes sense. Dale's run the full race at IRP quite a lot. Last couple of times he's run there. So, yeah, that'll be nice. Before we get out of here, better give my picks. My picks for this race, I'm going to go with Luke Fenhouse. I know Shane Huffman. He knows how to set up a car for IRP. He's driven IRP. So I'm going to go with Luke Fenhouse as my winner's pick. And my dark horse, I'm actually going to go with Greg Van Alst as my dark horse. I think Greg's going to come back with a vengeance. We're used to kind of seeing Greg show up. And run about 8th. On these kinds of tracks, but I think he'll come back with a vengeance. I think he'll come back with a way to win. So, winner's pick, the 28 of Luke Fenhouse. Dark horse pick is the 35 of Greg Van Alst. I think we're in for a very, very, very fun race. Probably lots of chaos as usual. And yeah, lots of championship battles to watch out for. But they want to say our series is boring. The haters just want to continue to say our series is boring. And the people who, hate me say that I say ARCA is the best series in the world. When have I ever said that? I don't know. I've never said that. I'm not going to say it is. It isn't. ARCA is not the best series in the world, but I love this series. It was the first series I started watching. I started watching ARCA before I started watching NASCAR, mainly due to my grandfather. So that's why I still love this series so much. Looks like we got a lot of William Sawaliches in the chat for picking this race. I don't blame him. Not seeing anyone else. So it looks like we got a lot of William Sawalich picks, but I'm going to stick with my guy, Luke Fenhouse. But yeah, overall, the race itself, guys, we'll go over the payouts real quick, and then we'll get out of here. The ARCA Menards East race IRP. Again, the short tracks, the lower paying races. Winner's purse is only $5,000 for first. And for 23rd last place is just $1,000. Again, guys, I wish it was a little bit higher. I know we all wish. Not even a set of tires is $1,000. That's more, $1,700 for a set of tires. With all the contingency awards, first place is $13,000. Second place is $6,175. And third place is $3,900. You can catch the race live, FS1, 5 p.m. Eastern, of course, because it's got to run before the truck race. So a doubleheader on Friday night. That'll be a very fun to watch. You got the ARCA race and the truck race. So if you're in the Indianapolis area, come on out. Come on out and go watch an ARCA race and truck race. It's going to be a fun race. So if you're in the area, go out and run a race. And yeah, guys, thank you again for tuning into the podcast. I mean, we had over 20 live viewers for this. That's the best this show's ever done. And so I must be doing something right. Thank you all for who's tuned in tonight, showing the continued support of this ARCA Racing podcast. We went 66 minutes tonight, and you guys are still here. So I really must be doing something right. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night and the rest of your week as a whole. I'm going to get out of here and enjoy the rest of my Tuesday night. And we will see you guys on Thursday for backmarker battles. I salute you guys. And I will see y'all on Thursday. And yeah, enjoy your night. Colby Evans, starting park car, signing off. Bye-bye.